Sorry, people that are watching. There we go. Hey, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Josh Wonders Why. Sorry, it had a bunch of technical difficulties. I'm checking. I see the mics are working, I believe, so we should be good to go. If you are watching us and you do not hear us or see us, please let me know. I'll actually get this so I can see the screen. Okay, so welcome, like I said, to Josh Wonders Why. Josh Wonders Why, for those of you that are new to this, my name is Josh. I am usually behind the scenes of doing the technical stuff behind the scenes of the Uprooted Faith online community, but every Monday I lead a little discussion just to talk about a variety of topics. Sometimes they're fun, sometimes they are, we'll say, more serious. Tonight we'll be talking about MLK, because when we are alive, the day is Martin Luther King Jr. Day. So what I'll be wondering about tonight is, why do we celebrate it? And have we really, as a nation, really improved since Martin Luther King was doing his justice work back in the 60s? So before we start, I want to introduce the people that are here tonight. We'll start on my far right. We have Pastor Kelly Sellers, who is...
It seems so formal.
It does.
Sorry.
We're not really that formal.
Two of my favorite people are here. We got Pastor Kelly here, who you know and love her from Digging Deep on Thursdays and also Josh Wonders Why on Mondays. So thank you again for joining us tonight.
Well, it is my office. So,
yeah, appreciate you letting us use your office as well. In the middle, new to this discussion, is my wife, MaryKate.
Hi. This is not my office, but I came in anyways.
So what I guess people that are watching may know me, may know Kelly. I asked maybe if you could give maybe some, introduce yourself.
Well, one thing is done. I am your wife.
There you go.
So I'm a member here at the in-building church, I should say, here at St. Andrew. But for the United Methodist Conference in Indiana, I am also part of a group called Diversity, Missions, and Justice, and specifically one called Compassion and Inclusion. And so I kind of like to get all that kind of just works with justice and social justice type topics.
Well, thanks.
And that's why we bring her on.
Yeah, she'll do most of the talking.
She knows things.
She'll answer most of the questions tonight. So one thing I want to point out, so if you are listening to us and not watching us, I do want to point out maybe the elephant in the room. None of us are black, right? But we're going to talk about Martin Luther King Jr., and I guess give our perspectives on him. I will note, I'm not intending this to be a history lesson, talk about the history of Martin Luther King Jr., his life, his death. I really just want to talk about, why are we celebrating it, and are we better off today than we were back then? There may be some history along the way. There may actually be some math, Kelly, so I'll ask you those questions.
Great.
So let's get started with the first question. So maybe I'll ask this question, and I'll start with you, MaryKate.
Hi, Susan. Hi, Jessica. Thanks for joining us.
So the first question I'll start with you, MaryKate, or whoever wants to chime in first. So why do you think we celebrate MLK Day? And why is it important to celebrate?
Okay, actually, I did just read something just this morning, so history is kind of going to be a part of this, because I guess that's where my brain goes sometimes. Why I think we celebrate it is because he's kind of the figurehead of the modern civil rights movements from the 50s and 60s, and I think he was just the face of it. I mean, you think like Martin Luther King Jr., you might think Malcolm X, Rosa Parks, like there's a whole bunch of names, but I know at least at the time Malcolm X kind of went down as not taking the nonviolent side of things. He was kind of lived into that anger, righteous anger, whereas I think everyone's kind of taken to the Dr. King's peaceful. That doesn't mean nice, by the way. Let's not get those two things confused. Love does not mean nice and sweet.
Nonviolent?
But nonviolent, peaceful, love forward. And so I think he kind of just he's a face because he earned it, and he's a face because I think he's just the good spearhead. But why it's a holiday was actually, I just found out this weekend that I think like 4 days after his murder, they actually started to apply to make this a holiday. And it took, I think, until the mid-'80s. So we're talking, I think it took something like 16 or 17 years for it to actually become something like that. And the immediately after, which was in the fall, in October, I think of 83, 84, something like that, Coretta Scott King, right, his wife, actually went to the United Methodist building, the one in Washington, D.C., like the headquarters for the United Methodist Church, which is right next to the Supreme Court building and across from the Capitol building, and used their little chapel in their building there to hold a service in kind of in honor of finally getting the Martin Luther Reagan, I think, did it right, the Martin Luther King Jr. Holiday. So I've been in that chapel. I was just in that chapel. So that's why I kind of clung to that. I thought that was interesting. So that's why we celebrate it. It took them 17 years to get it.
Yeah.
So not in such a short way. That's my long-winded answer. So.
Sorry, I'm hearing there's feedback, but maybe if you're having any issues listening to us, if you're hearing feedback, you're hearing like static, let me know. Maybe just coming from the headset. But thanks for that input. I guess Kelly, anything to add as far as your thoughts and why you feel we celebrate it, why it's important to celebrate?
Well, I think it's important to celebrate because...
Okay, lots of static.
Oh.
I think it's probably coming from yours, I believe.
I wonder if because I probably should leave it alone. Maybe that's part of the problem.
I'm playing with mine too. Maybe I'll put mine down.
Okay, let's start a rule now. No one play with their lapel mics, please. Just don't touch them.
Okay.
So I can hear the static. I guess yes, Carissa, keep us posted if you think. I guess if you hear more static, but we'll try to.
Thanks for joining us.
Try to. I know we had I guess what was it last year? We were talking about Harry Potter, and we brought in some wands. I think Kelly just was playing with a wand the whole time. So you like to play with stuff.
I must need something in my hands. I don't know. I get my ukulele over here.
I don't know. In my library at school, I put little fuzzy set of Velcro underneath all the tables.
I'm not touching it.
Okay, 1 second. I think it's your mic, Kelly. So I turned off your mic.
Okay.
Okay.
That's cool.
I can pass it back and forth. You want me to hold on to it?
Okay, so I think it was Kelly's mic that was having a lot of static.
So I'm just going to nod a lot.
So
Don't move a muscle. This is going to be very formal, Carissa.
You may hear some echoes from Kelly, or you may hear some Kelly be more echoing like in a cave, but I think you'll be able to pick up the mic from MaryKate's.
Do you want me to hold it?
If you don't mind, maybe you could try to do that. If you can do that on camera.
Well, I can just nod.
Well, that means I have to talk the whole time.
That's right.
So, I think we were talking about the history of why we celebrate MLK Day, and this is nice trying to get this started.
Yep, we're just gonna
have wardrobe issues.
Okay.
We're not talking. We're not talking about Super Bowl though. Okay, so it won't.
Yeah. Okay.
So let's go back. I guess I want to give some additional history for, I guess, how MLK Day became a national holiday. So you were correct. It took about 15 years, because right after his death in 1968, they started petitioning for it. And it didn't actually go into law until 1983 is actually when it was signed into a bill as a federal holiday, but actually wasn't first observed. Sorry, I'm thinking there's still static, but I'm hoping not, and this is going to be fun. Okay, first observed in 1986, so that took 3 years from actually officially observe it. Now, at the time of 1983, there are actually already 17 states that are already observing it as some other holiday at the state level, just that. So, but when it came into passed a bill into law, there were states obviously that were against it and resistant to it. Sure. So I guess I saw they sort of, in resisting it, they sort of named the holiday, didn't acknowledge MLK Day. They named it like Civil Rights Day, or Wyoming named it Wyoming Equality Day, but anyways, it took until 2000 actually for MLK Day to officially be observed in all 50 states. I didn't realize it took that long.
I'm not sure I did either.
Can you guess the state that was the last one?
Alabama?
Nope.
Okay. Mississippi?
No. Indiana?
It was South Carolina was the last one. Actually, the last 5 states to actually observe it, 1993 was Arizona, then New Hampshire in 99, and then 2000 Virginia, Utah, and South Carolina. So Alabama and the other one, Mississippi, they picked it up maybe prior to that.
I mean, all the work that he did in Alabama. I mean, Alabama was a big civil rights state,
yeah.
So that's why I maybe thought they were the last, but also not surprised by that, I guess.
Teresa says it's much better, so.
Okay. I'm sorry, I gave you the bad mic. I told you I was worried. When we have 3 mics, there's one mic that's mad, and Kelly got that bad mic, and it seems to be 50-50 for if it works.
Yeah.
So.
That's okay.
So hopefully, yeah, appreciate you handing the mic back and forth.
This is how we do things.
So we got that. One other thing interesting, though, that I found was that Reagan really, so if you know his politics, he was pretty much against civil rights. He was more about individual rights. So it seems odd that he would be the president to sign this into act. But I guess at the time of his presidency, he was losing support from like folks in the NAACP and also, we'll say, white moderates. So he signed this into law sort of to gain sort of maybe their approval, maybe shut down some of the protesters in the NAACP. So he used that. Now, one thing I found is that there were allies that were, his allies sort of confronted him saying, we're real concerned you're changing your stance because you're signing this into law. He assured them privately from some letters that people were looking at that he didn't change his stance, remembering a selective image of MLK. So basically, he used the selective image of maybe a sensitized, maybe a soft-spoken MLK to sort of drive home his vision or his thought that, hey, MLK's vision of colorblind nation, that's been resolved. Racism's in the past. We're good to move forward, right? Which, you know,
we ended racism.
Reagan,
nice
if you know
shot.
Reagan, that seems right up his alley.
Well done.
But I did find it interesting that's why he signed it into law, was to sort of gain that. And I was thinking about that more about soft-spokenness, and I think thinking back in the past, you know, people really didn't talk about how much of like him, and I think you've also brought up Rosa Parks. You think that she's a frail lady, but she was actually a pretty heavy activist at the time, right?
Right. I don't ever remember being taught that Rosa Parks was anything but just a happenstance bystander who was tired one day. Now, maybe that's wrong. I wasn't the most studious of people, but I don't ever recall being taught that she was an activist. This was a planned and scheduled event. Yeah. She knew what she was doing. She did not just get caught on a bad day feeling overstimulated and saying, I don't care, take me to jail. This was planned. She knew it was going to happen, and they already had it in the works. And there was absolutely nothing about Dr. King that was soft-spoken. He may have had love and the gospel, but he did not preach soft-spoken, and just the fact that we kind of quote him as that way is really quite misleading.
It is.
Well, Jesus wasn't nice either.
Jesus wasn't nice?
Jesus wasn't nice.
Can we say that again for the people in the back? Jesus wasn't nice.
Jesus wasn't nice. He was loving, but he wasn't a pushover.
Yeah.
You know, and I think what turns off some people from Christianity is thinking that Jesus was nice. And that doesn't really carry any weight. You know, nice is nice, but you want somebody that'll stand up for you, protect you, and that would be Jesus. So Jesus wasn't nice, and
I'm sure he had his soft spots, but Jesus wasn't there. That's where I see the difference between kind and nice, right? Nice is, I don't want to upset anybody. I don't want confrontation. I never want to make anybody feel bad. Whereas I see kind is standing up for what is right? What is being nice to the person teasing somebody else that isn't there, right? When someone talks about someone behind their back and you don't want to say anything because you want to be nice and not hurt them, you're not being nice, kind to the other person, right? Somewhere you're being unkind to either side of something. And I don't think Jesus was ever nice like that. I mean, I'm sure he was nice, but
yeah.
That wasn't his ministry.
He wasn't
wimpy. Just like Noah wasn't some Santa Claus, genteel, right? Santa Claus looking like all of our action figures show. So I think there's a big difference.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that, and that's unfortunate, you know, with the background of why it came into be a federal holiday is sort of misleading in a way. But I think looking back on it now, what can we take away as it can be a day of remembrance once a year, just to remember, you know, what did he stand for, and just to consider, you know, are we making progress moving forward, which is what he was trying to drive, was just make progress. We need to continue to make progress, right? We can't go backwards. We need to always move forward, right? I think that was his hope. I don't remember the quote, but at his funeral, someone quoted that his hope was that when he died, he had made the world a better place and helped it move forward, right?
Right.
And I think that's what we need to consider in the day is just,
And can I tie in the letter from the Birmingham jail, where he argues with the pastors who were telling him, just cool it for a while, we got to just like gradually, and he was like, no, that's not going to work. And he says something like that in his speech too. We can't just settle for gradual. We have to do things to make it happen.
Yeah, that's good. So that was good discussion on that. The other question I want to talk about is, have we as a nation made progress and improved since he was around and doing his work in the 50s and the 60s? Now, for those that are part of our online community, I posted a video from YouTube of his famous "I Have a Dream" speech. Now, I know he gave a lot of speeches. I think that's the famous one. I feel bad picking that one, as there's plenty of other speeches that are probably, just as good, if not better. But I want to pick that one because I didn't realize it was, and I'll do the math for you, it was actually, he gave it a little over 60 years ago. It was like August, September of 1963. So it was actually around 60 years ago today, or around this time, that he gave that speech. So that's why I felt, though, is good to post it, because looking back 60 years, have we made much progress with what his concerns are about, with police brutality, segregation, and everything else? And maybe I'll open up for either you, I guess, MaryKate or Kelly, to comment in your thoughts on, have we progressed? And I guess maybe I'll start there. Have we progressed since his speech in 1963?
I would say, I feel like that's a trap of a question.
It's not intended to be a trap of a question.
I know you're not intending it to be a trap, but it feels like a trap. To say, I feel like I have to say yes. There obviously has been progress. If in his time, and really his dates back to the mid-50s, his time, kind of on that social front, and to say that in his span, there was no progress, well, you wouldn't have a holiday, even if he's this safe face of the civil rights movement. The mere fact that it exists shows that there was progress, right? He was there, that time was there when segregation was legally ended, in schools in particular. The Voting Rights Act happened in his time, right? If I'm correct, my memory is correct.
1965.
Yeah. Yep. And things like the all of that kind of stuff happened. So there has been progress this whole time, and I think there continues to be progress. I think where that ends is thinking that, like you said, Reagan said, "Oh, racism is over. It's ended." And for us to be complacent, I guess I got thinking about kind of using. I'm going to put a little spin on the fable of the tortoise and the hare, right? Where the tortoise sets out fast, right? We all know the tortoise and the hare, but if I can kind of flip that on its side a little bit, I saw some connections to that when I was thinking about this. That the tortoise goes slow and steady, wins the race, and if we place that as the civil rights movement with him, long before him. I mean, we had people trying to fight to end, the time of enslavement with Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln, like Reagan, didn't do it because he believed in that fully. He still wanted everything to be that kind of separate but equal, and so he kind of did it in order to solve problems back then and get reelected, not because he was a full front abolitionist. But the Black community and the civil rights movements have been what I call the tortoise, have constantly been moving. They never take the rest. They know that progress has to be pulled along. We're not going to do it. Whereas I kind of see us maybe more as that hare saying, well, we're good. We can take a rest now. We've gotten way ahead. We've helped pull ahead. Look at us. We're great. Now we can rest. That kind of that idea of equating rest with complacency. We become complacent, and you kind of showed that with your thing about Reagan, about, oh, it's solved now, or at least we're good now. We don't have legal segregation. But the church is the most segregated hour in the day of the week. Is in a church building, is the most segregated area. And so that shows that, yes, there's been progress, but we cannot just become complacent and thinking more doesn't need to be done.
Well said.
I might be stretching with that tortoise in the hair, but it just kind of hit me that way, that just he rested because he was complacent. And we can sometimes say, oh, well, we've made progress. I showed up that one time. I shared that social media post
good metaphor.
and became complacent. So that's just, my brain wanders like that. I see a bunch of squirrels, and so I can go around and around with different things all the time. But
well, I also think that it's easy for white people to rest and to not think about it, and we have a choice. It's like, some people will go sleep on the street for a night to experience homelessness. Well, no, you're not really experiencing homelessness because you're making that choice, and then you're going to make the choice to go back home. As white people, we can just file it away and go, well, it's better, it's okay.
Yeah.
But people of color, they have to always be moving forward.
Which is unfortunate, because I think it goes back to, I think it's essentially goes back to privilege, right? Even though people debate, no, we don't have white privilege, I think there's still privilege, whether you like to admit it or not, in some form or fashion. We're privileged enough to not, to be that hair, and we can rest and not continue to, slow burn, for 60 years, try to make progress.
Well,
right?
remember, white privilege doesn't mean the absence of other hardships.
Yeah.
Poverty,
Yeah.
trauma, all of those things are very true for anybody. It's just in that realm, that's what people, I think, get so kind of worked up about that. Well, I grew up this way and I didn't have any advantages and I had to work for it. Absolutely. Yeah, sure. Absolutely. I'd believe it. It's just that this one avenue wasn't one of those metaphoric stones in your backpack, right? Like, it's just in this realm. Like, it doesn't mean that it is every other way, just as this in this one way.
Yeah.
That's great. She's in there, but I feel, I feel like we have made progress. My concern is looking to the future. There are, different states are working to pass different legislations to sort of try to reverse some of that stuff, right? There's, in various states, Indiana being one, I believe Arkansas is another one, and there are probably other ones looking at school vouchers to take money away from public schools to help more people get into private schools, but it ends up helping more white people than it is people of color, right? So it sort of continues to maybe more have a dividing line and moving back into, some sort of segregation in a way.
Well, it's kind of like when desegregation happened, then all the white parents pulled their kids out of the public school, right?
Yeah.
I'm not making that up, am I?
No, that's correct.
So they were going to, basically school them privately. So then we still had segregation.
Yeah.
It was,
They just found a way around it.
It wasn't legal.
Yeah.
But if they found a way around it, because then they could just take their kids out and there you go.
Yes. There's terms for that, but I won't say it. But yes, the school vouchers can absolutely be a modern day issue that we are just talking about covert and overt, right? Like, that's not overt racism. School vouchers in and of themselves are not, but they're covert, because they started off saying they were only accessible to certain families or certain income levels, right? And then they have slowly towed the line and broadened that to the amount of money that you can make is more and more and more and the number of children doesn't make a difference. And it's broken down with the size of your family and your income. And so now Indiana has basically done away with that ceiling and anybody can have access to any of that, which sounds fine because it's not like, oh, we have these 10 vouchers that the first 10 can come and get it. Anybody can do it. And again, that's one of the ways that I'd be almost curious to see Dr. King's take on it, although it wouldn't have to be Dr. King. There's enough people, activists, and anti-racism activists nowadays that can speak and say the same thing he would have. So we wouldn't need him here to be saying it. People are saying it. We just have to listen. That the number of it's accessible to anybody, but what can happen is that the schools can then fill the seats with the people they would rather have there, rather than the ones that are lower income or just don't fit the face of their school. And can get in there, or they can say, okay, you can get this voucher for this much money. We can just raise tuition, so that you can't fill the gap that's in that voucher only gets you so close to the tuition, and they can just raise that to create an extra gap. And it's not specifically race related, but if you were to look statistically, it would fall that way.
Yeah. So I know. So to sum it up, because we're getting to the end of the 30 minutes, but it's been a good discussion, and I want to give people the rest of the time just to enjoy their evening or whenever they're watching this. But I guess to look at, have we made progress? Yes. Looking back in the 60s and 50s, now you and I weren't alive at the time. I'm not going to guess on your age, Kelly. I'm going to guess you're probably like 5 years older than us because you don't look more than 5 years older than us. But
I am 58.
Okay,
that's more than 5
proud.
years
Okay,
older than us.
So I guess the question, we were not around the time. Our history book showed, at the before segregation, before desegregation, there were white-only water fountains, black-only water fountains, bathrooms were white and black, schools, that has come a long way since then. We don't have that where there's separate entrances to different facilities. Now, were you alive at the time? Do you remember any of that stuff, or was that
I was
past?
born in 65.
Okay. So that stuff probably was before you were, maybe when you were aware of, when you can think back in your memories, probably that stuff had all been...
Oh, I'm not gonna say it. Yes,
older.
dang, she's old.
You'll always be older.
That's funny.
Yeah. No, I don't know when I first learned about MLK. I have no recollection, but I guarantee you it wasn't in elementary school.
It certainly wouldn't have been. But that's our generation. They talk about, they wandered around the desert with Moses for 40 years, in essence, if I'm correct, to kind of outlive the original generation that came into the desert. Am I wrong on that? They came into the desert from the Israelites and wandered around for 40 years. I've seen references saying that it's so that those who went into the promised land were not the same generation who came in. They were waiting for them to die off.
If this was math related
No,
age,
because a generation would have been about 40 years, right? That's not a generation. That's kind of a generation. That's not a lifespan anymore, right? That's 60 years. A lot of them are still alive. My dad would have been a youth. He's not much older than Martin Luther. It's not much off from the age, I should say. With that generation still lives, many of them, right? The ones that were going to the schools, that were protesting having to go to schools with people. And I find that to be a really interesting dynamic. And I don't know how that's going to play out in the next 20, 30 years as that balance shifts. But we have plenty of opportunities for now that as my generation starts to get older, we will be able to recall things from our past. Everything from a few summers ago, everything from modern times, even, all sorts of different things, or even redlining becoming illegal and the start of HOAs in neighborhoods and how that corresponds. There's a whole lot of things, and every generation is going to have theirs.
Sure.
So. Yeah, and I think it's so important that we observe this day today, and that we listen to that and re-listen to that speech, because it is so timely in every decade. Yeah, it is. As I listened to it again today, I was like, yeah, that's the same. Yeah, that's the same. So we have to keep reminding ourselves of that vision that he had and he shared.
Yeah. I think the key is, people, maybe mostly white people, we're complacent saying, well, we don't have segregated schools, we don't have separate water fountains, racism is over, right? But what we need to consider, and like we're talking about the school vouchers, is it's not just that segregation. There are various systems in place that are still preventing, people of color to getting to the same level of social welfare as white people, right? So I think we just need to identify what are the current systems now in place that are still trying to prevent us.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, I laughed because we're already at 31 minutes, and that's probably just a 30-minute talk on its own.
I want to give that out because my hope is then as we approach February, which is Black History Month, I wanted to spend some time in Josh Wonders Why at that time with some topics, talk about what are these various systems, right? We talk about school vouchers. There are the
mass incarceration,
school
to prison pipeline.
Well, there's also the smaller ones too, like the censoring Black history, right, in public schools. And I think there's also some repeals, right? It's repealing the Voter Act from 1965 as well, right? So discuss some of those topics and just to identify what are the current systems. It may not be the same systems that are in place in the 60s. Maybe they are. Some of them are, but there are new systems now still generating the same sort of, we'll say, racism that is still maybe continuing to move forward.
And even things that was blatant racism, right? Yeah. Like there was the colored water fountain and the colored section of everywhere, right? Whereas nowadays, the systems or the policies that are there, what we have to look at is not is race named, because it can't really be named anymore, is what is the impact? What are the groups of people most impacted by that? And if it shows that one group of people is more negatively impacted by a policy, then that speaks something about it. And that is much harder to identify, and it's much harder to convince people. It's much harder to talk about, but that's kind of the perspective that we have to take. Tony put something, Martin Luther King, you want to say that?
Go ahead.
Martin Luther King represented the name better than the original Martin Luther, who was very anti-Semitic. And that's a whole nother half hour, Josh wonders why we could talk about. Yes,
I've always been wondering.
And Martin Luther.
I've always been wondering why he was named. I know he's named after his father, but why was his father a Baptist minister named after Martin Luther in the first place, right?
Well, I mean, Martin Luther's just, he's the original Protestant.
Yeah, okay, that's fair.
He wrote. What's that hymn? I just looked at it this morning, but
I think we talked about it recently too.
And he did a lot of great things for the Christians in trying to correct some of the ways that Catholicism had run it off the road.
So it's a segue. Maybe next Monday we can wonder about Martin Luther.
Some heavy wondering.
Trying to figure, but So I was going to wrap it up with something that I just thought about, but I totally forgot because I think the Martin Luther comment derailed it. But
we're going to have to take a break. Yes. And just, test peeps or something light.
Right, I think so. Do something light. Yeah.
Well, how about this? I'll just take it since there's something you said at the beginning that really fits what I've been doing. I work in an elementary school library. And for Martin Luther King, sorry, Tony says sorry.
That's fine, Tony. I appreciate the interruptions. It's always fun.
In the library, we don't give the history lessons and that kind of thing. I said, I've been telling the students last week that I won't be teaching them about him, but just trying to keep this insight that he worked to leave the world a better place than he came into it. And I think that's probably the definition of progress, right? And that we don't have to have a doctorate degree. We don't have to be a pastor. We don't have to have college education. We don't even have to be adults. Since I was working since I work with children, they are the now and the future. And I said what he did was he worked to make the world a better place than he found it in. And that's ultimately what we should all be striving for, because most of us aren't going to be in front of crowds of thousands or tens of thousands. Most of us aren't even going to be in front of a church congregation. Even a classroom or any sort of group. It was just working in whatever capacity or place you're in to leave your space better than the way you found it. And I think that, to me, that's what I wanted the students, and I see them all, to kind of take away, no matter what their age was.
And this is why she is at the conference level working on justice.
There you go. Well said. I think that's making progress, right? But don't get complacent where we're at, and just be considerate whenever a new legislation comes out. How does it impact people? Is another system to try to segregate people? Be aware of that and just be active to write lawmakers saying, I don't agree with this. We need to make changes, right? Change happens with individuals, and that, just be mindful of that. I think Martin Luther King Jr. Day helps us. Just be mindful of that. If only for one day a year you think about it, that's better than not thinking about it at all.
Yeah.
Right, and the progress shouldn't make us complacent. It should be motivating for us to continue to see injustice in different ways, in different forms.
So we'll probably go deeper in that Black History Month. Next week, I'll consider something very light to discuss. We'll consider something on the other
Meaning
end.
I won't be here.
But honestly, I appreciate you stopping by, joining us with your expertise. Thanks, Kelly, as always, with your expertise and answering my questions.
But I'm always glad when MaryKate joins us. I'm always like, maybe I'll just scoot over. Or just,
Someone once told me that once I talk, sometimes it feels like you've been punched in the arm. And she meant it as a compliment, but because she taught me a lot of the things that I know. So it's someone
I've been married to her for more than 15 years, and I can vouch that's what it feels like. Right.
I don't know what I said that she said that, but I will take it because she is a very prominent leader and Black leader and anti-racism work. So I took it. She meant it as a compliment, and I took it as a compliment. But it's not my natural comfort zone, but that's kind of the point.
Well, appreciate it. So that ends tonight's Josh Wonders Why. Appreciate you all watching us. Got a little deep with this stuff. If you have any questions or additional comments, feel free to post them. If there's any other questions you have or anything else on this topic, just post it. You can always feel free to just put a post in the group itself. Don't just limit it to myself and Kelly. We'd love to see what your thoughts are, what sort of inspirational things you've seen, any questions or things you're wrestling with. Just feel free to post them in the community. That's what we're here for. Looking forward to this upcoming week. I guess we have Digging Deep again this Thursday, and not to continue going deep, but I think, grief is what we're going to be talking about? Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. So we'll continue this sort of depressing discussion into Thursday with talking about grief, I guess, right?
I don't think my message is depressing. I think, we're going to talk about ways to deal with grief and to learn to live again.
Okay. Looking forward to it. So Thursday night at 7 p.m., see us right here. We'll be here back live, and then be back again next Monday for another Josh Wonders Why. Maybe hopefully a lot lighter. Figure something fun to do. Maybe we'll just, I don't know, eat peeps.
You should invite me for something fun sometime.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe we'll see if we can come out next week.
You're going to get a reputation.
I mean...
whenever they tune in, they see MaryKate here. Oh, no. I don't know if I'll watch this one.
She's going to hit me in the arm again.
Again, thank you all for watching. Appreciate it. And I thank, again, MaryKate and Kelly for joining me tonight. And as always, we'll see you in the comments.
Bye.
Bye.